In August 1914, the two greatest navies in the world made ready for war.
Now the Royal Navy will settle the question of the German fleet. If they do not come out and fight, they will be dug out, like rats from a hole.
But the two fleets rarely met. Instead, a new kind of war evolved. More stealthy, more cruel. A war not against battleships, but people. The world's capital ships in 1914 were the products of a Cold War. Britain's HMS Dreadnought had set the benchmark. Heavy armour, big guns, fast. Dreadnoughts were bargaining chips in a great naval poker game. Germany had 13 and 7 building, Austria-Hungary 3, America 10, Britain 20. They kept the peace, but then the Cold War turned hot. Britain and Germany were the main opponents, staring each other down across the North Sea. The longer the two sides looked at the map, the more obvious their problems became. Germany's ships couldn't get clear of the North Sea. To the south, the Channel, blocked by mines and the Dover Patrol. To the north, the British Grand Fleet at Scapa Flow. But Britain couldn't get at the German fleet unless it came out from its heavily protected bases. And if they actually met in the North Sea, the result could be catastrophic. The sight everyone feared. Austro-Hungarian battleship the Istvan, sunk late in the war by a tiny Italian torpedo boat. In 1914, the German Navy believed torpedoes and submarines might tip the balance their way. A hit-and-run war with little history and no rules. Jackie Fisher, Britain's sharpest admiral, predicted radical change ahead.
The use of submarines has convinced us that in wartime, nothing can stand against them. The submarine is the coming type of war vessel for sea fighting. It means that the whole foundation of our traditional naval strategy has broken down.
2 days into the war, Germany unleashed 10 U-boats into the North Sea to hunt down the British fleet. One of them, U-21, made her way to the Firth of Forth, where the British cruiser HMS Pathfinder was leaving Rosyth Naval Base. U-21 sunk her with a single torpedo. Within a fortnight, the Germans had more good news. This 1927 film celebrates the voyage of Captain Vedigan and the U-9.
Through my prismatic glasses, I noticed a small masthead coming into view near the Mars lightship. It looked like the mast of a warship. Could this be the first sight of the enemy that we were to have during the war?
The U-9 had found the British cruisers Hogue, Aboukir and Cressy on patrol off the Dutch coast. Practically obsolete, they were nicknamed the Live Bait Squadron. Captain Vedigan seized his chance.
Fired torpedo at 500 meters. Target was middle ship in a 3-ship formation.
31 seconds later, the torpedo struck Aboukir. On board was Kit Musgrave.
We were woken by a terrific crash, and the whole ship shook, and all the crockery in the pantry fell. Then Cressy and Hogue arrived and let down their boats. the Aboukir went down suddenly, and we slid down her side into the water.
Musgrave jumped into the North Sea and became the only man in the war to be sunk on 3 ships within 1 hour.
I swam to the Hogue and was just going on board when she was struck and sank in 3 minutes. I then swam onto the Cressy and was hauled up the side with a rope. But she was struck also, and we sank.
Georg von Müller was chief of Germany's Imperial Naval Cabinet.
On our return from the morning ride, the first news of the successful torpedo attack by the U-9 on 3 English cruisers. We are all delighted, and the Kaiser is in 7th heaven.
The British were appalled. First Lord of the Admiralty, Winston Churchill, got the blame. Over 1,400 men, many of them young cadets, had died in a single submarine attack. Winston's war babies, they were called. British submarine Lieutenant Ronald Trevor wrote to his parents.
The news tonight is sad, but what we submariners have been expecting for weeks. The Commodore has repeatedly warned the Admiralty that those ships ought not to patrol the North Sea. What has happened is exactly what we predicted. Ships stand by to rescue the sinking one's crew, then the submarine gets 2 sitting shots.
Commander-in-Chief of the British Grand Fleet was Admiral John Jellicoe. He joined the Navy in 1874 as a midshipman. Known as Silent Jack, he was experienced, capable, and cautious. He ended patrols off the German coast, confining his most valuable ships to Scapa Flow and Rosyth, at the very limits of the U-boat's range. He warned the Admiralty.
The Germans have shown that they rely to a very great extent on submarines, mines, and torpedoes, and there can be no doubt that they possess an actual superiority over us in these particular directions.
Germany's forward submarine base was on the island of Heligoland. The U-boats were ordered to sweep the North Sea. But the British had gone. On the 16th of December 1914, hoping to lure the British out, 5 German warships steamed across the North Sea. At 7 in the morning, they opened fire on Scarborough and Hartlepool.
There was a terrific crash. We thought it must be sudden thunder. But when another crash came, we rushed to the window and saw a lot of smoke and cried, "It's the Germans!" 2 of the wee girls hung on to me and said, "Are the Germans going to kill us?"
122 people died in the attack. It was the first time enemy warships had killed anyone on the British mainland in over a century. Jellicoe too had been thinking about attacking the enemy's homeland, but his weapon would not be a hit-and-miss naval bombardment, but a blockade, tight as a drum and lethal.
What we have to do is starve and cripple Germany. The destruction of the German fleet is a means to an end, and not an end in itself.
Here was a use for those huge battleships, as sentinels sealing the exits from the North Sea, stopping Germany's fleet getting out and her vital food and war supplies getting in. The North Sea would become no man's land, a dead sea. Jellicoe was helped by an invention more important than dreadnoughts or even submarines: wireless. Every day, every German ship radioed its position back to fleet headquarters at Wilhelmshaven. Across the North Sea, in the Coast Guard station at Hunstanton in Norfolk, British naval intelligence was listening. The German messages were passed on to a group of codebreakers working in one of Britain's most secret departments, Room 40, deep in the heart of the Admiralty Old Building. According to one of their officers, the men in Room 40 were a mixed bag.
They knew ordinary literary German fluently, and they could be relied on. But of cryptography, of naval German, of the habits of war vessels of any nationality, they knew not a jot.
Some, like Dilwyn Knox, would help crack the German Enigma code in the Second World War. But in 1914, they desperately needed some clues. The break came in the Baltic Sea, where a German cruiser, the Magdeburg, was captured by the Russians. On board, they found one of the most valuable documents of the war and passed it on to their British allies. This is the Magdeburg's codebook. It allowed the men in Room 40 to read nearly everything the German Navy was planning. Oh well, the Kaiser said, on learning of the Magdeburg's capture. Sparks are bound to fly at a time like this. But the Kaiser had no idea his enemies had his codebook. No idea of the immense advantage they now possessed.